Hey, Richard Bryce here, Tennis Hacker. In this video, I'm going to help you to improve your backhand down the line. The way I'm going to do that is to show you some of my own training, because this is something that I'm working on at the moment. Now, I'm naturally a right-handed player, but I had an accident and a mountain bike crash. I've had to stop playing right-handed, and now I'm relearning to play left-handed, and I'm trying to develop an attacking game style because my goal is to become a 5.0 player and then hopefully go on to play on the seniors ITF tour. And the backhand down the line is going to be really an important shot for me, because generally I'm going to be getting into cross-court rallies where my opponent's forehand is coming into my backhand, so I need to make sure that my cross-court is stable. But then when I get the opportunity and the ball drops a little bit short, I need to have the ability to step in, rip the backhand down the line, which is going to be to my opponent's backhand, and this is really going to allow me to change direction, get them out of position, and take charge of the point. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I'm working on it. Before I go to the court, I start off with a flexibility and mobility warm-up. This is something that I worked really hard on because previously as a right-handed player, my flexibility held me back. So now I'm really working on my hip flexibility so that I can stay lower on my shots, so that I can have a wider, more stable split step to help me cover ground more quickly, and so that I've got more freedom in my hips and I can efficiently use my kinetic chain. When I get to the court, I start by working on my footwork. I believe this is one of the most important parts of tennis. I know for me, learning as a left-hander is one of the biggest things that I've had to focus on to help me improve quickly. Now, I spend my time working on whatever footwork patterns I need to focus on. And at the moment, that's still the forehand for me. So although I'm working on my one-handed backhand in this training session, for the footwork, I'm programming in different variations for the forehand open stance, loading off my left leg, really trying to be as efficient as I can with my hips. I'm also trying to stay nice and low and be as bouncy as I can on my toes, so just trying to develop a much higher level of footwork overall. Last thing I do before I start hitting balls is do some visual activation drills. In the past, I used to really struggle with the visual side of things, so growing up as a right-hander, I had major timing problems, and because of that, I was never able to develop any real weapons. One of the causes of that was that my brain wasn't using the image from both eyes effectively. That's something called visual suppression, and that's something that I'm working against in this drill. Now, I've corrected my main problem, but I like to keep on top of things and make sure that my brain is using both eyes effectively before I start hitting any balls. Something that goes along with that is doing work to improve the quality of my eye movements on my left eye. Normally, my left eye movements just aren't as clean and crisp as my right eye, so it's something I continually work to try and upgrade, try and even them out. And the reason that that's important is because the more even they are, the more effectively your brain will be able to use the image from both eyes to create that binocular vision, which is important for timing and depth judgment and that side of things. And the way that you do single eye training work is you do work to correct the eye that you're working on. So here I'm doing drills with my right eye covered, working on my left eye. After you've done enough repetitions, you then work with both eyes together because you want to reintegrate things and train the brain to use both eyes together. After warming up my visual system, I then work on mini tennis. I think it's a fantastic tool for kind of grooving parts of your stroke, for helping with your timing, for training your footwork, for working on lots of different things. So here I'm doing some volleys. This is something that I'm doing every session because it's something, again, that I used to struggle with in the past. So I want to work on my net game as well. And what I'm trying to do here is just keep my eyes and head as still as I can through contact, hold them there for a moment or two after contact to try and improve that consistency. So this is something known as quiet eye, and you see it from a lot of the top pros, and that's all I'm working with, just trying to keep my head as still as I can. And when working on my ground strokes, I'm really focusing on the spacing and the timing, and the footwork side is going to be really important for that. So I'm always trying to be as light as I can on my toes. As soon as I see where the ball's going, even in mini tennis, I'm really thinking about the spacing, how far I need to be away from the ball, and then just trying to be as smooth as I can with my stroke, trying to get that nice contact out in front of my body, but without swinging too fast. So not having to rush my stroke, just swinging early enough and smooth enough that I can be nice and clean with my shots. So as I said at the start, I'm working on a pattern of the play. So yes, I'm working on my down the line backhand, But in order for me to get into the position to hit the downline backhand, I'm going to need to get really good in a cross-court rally where I'm rallying with my backhand to my right-handed opponent's forehand, which is generally going to be their stronger stroke. So I actually spent the majority of this session working on the cross-court. So I started out with a few baskets of topspin backhands. I've got a target set up in the opposite corner of the court. It's a nice big target, so it's about 1.5 meters in from the baseline and the sideline. And all I'm trying to do is just hit a consistent deep ball to that spot. I'm not trying to crush it, I'm just trying to get a decent amount of spin on it and try and push my opponent back. And technically, I'm just trying to be as smooth as I can with my timing. And for me, that normally means being as light as I can on my toes, because in the past I had a tendency to kind of get stuck to the floor and then arm the ball rather than driving through my hips and efficiently using my kinetic chain. So that's what I'm really kind of focusing on, and it was quite a challenge because, as you can see, there's shadows, so the ball kind of drifted in and out. So it was very good practice to try and be as light as I can and kind of work on more difficult conditions. Next, I'm working on my slice, so I've changed the feed up a little bit. On the previous ball, it was a little bit higher, it was a little bit deeper, which is why I was hitting with my one-handed backhand. This one's a little bit wider and a little bit lower, so all I'm trying to do is use my slice, still aiming for that same target, trying to keep my opponent pinned back and hopefully enable them to hit me a shorter ball that I can then step in on. Technically, I'm fairly happy with the slice, so all I'm really working on is trying to keep my head as still as I can through contact, especially in conditions like this where the shadows, really trying to watch the ball through to contact. And when I got that part right, I was pretty happy with the results that I was getting. And then I worked on my inside out forehand, because in this corner you've got three options. I've got my topspin one-handed backhand, I've got my slice backhand, or I've got the inside out forehand. And obviously this is the one that I'm waiting for, because if I get the opportunity to hit the inside out forehand, I can then hopefully get enough weight on the ball to really push them back, and then potentially they're going to drop the ball short and I can step in with my one-handed backhand and take it down the line. Now, apologies for this one, there was a bit of a hiccup with the camera, so I haven't got the view from the back. But in terms of what I'm working on technically, this one is all about trying to drive through my left hip. So I practiced this footwork pattern earlier, kind of stepping across myself, loading, setting up in an open stance, and then initiating my swing by driving that left hip forwards and trying to use that to generate the racket head speed. And then we get to the backhand down the line. Now for the feed, I've made it a little bit easier, so it's coming a little bit more slowly and it's dropping shorter, because this is the ball that I need to try and recognize so that I can step in and attack that one-handed backhand down the line. And in terms of my focus, really trying to be light on my toes to be efficient with the timing. So I probably sound a little bit like a stuck record, but that's because it's the thing that I need to focus on until I've got significantly better at tennis, because it's all about being set up in the right position, having your feet in the right place so you can be balanced, and then efficiently using your kinetic chain to try and create racket head speed. So that's what I'm concentrating on, just landing nice and light with my first couple of steps, trying to be the right distance from the ball, and then just trying to meet the ball out in front. So I'm not trying to hit it hard, I'm just trying to roll up the back of the ball as smoothly as I can. Okay, so that's how I'm working on things on the court, really focusing on my footwork, trying to be nice and light on my toes, trying to make sure that I'm setting up the right distance from the ball, and then driving through my hip to initiate the swing, trying to be as smooth as I can with my timing. But the reason I've been able to improve my left hand so quickly is less about what I do on the court and more about the things that I do off the court, because you can only play tennis at the level that your body will allow. So I'm constantly trying to improve myself as a tennis athlete, and for me that means improving my flexibility, because in the past that was always a major limitation. It also means working to improve how my visual system functions and how good my coordination is. So earlier on you saw one of the vision drills that I was working on, or a couple of the different vision drills that I was working on. The first one was about improving my brain's ability to use both eyes together. The reason that that's important is because using both eyes is what allows you to judge distance and depth and speed more effectively. And if you can't use both eyes, you can't judge distance effectively, it's really hard to start your swing at the right time. So you end up hitting the ball late a lot. And that was something that I used to struggle with a lot when I was younger until I fixed the issue. And then I was focusing on that left eye work because my eye movements aren't quite as good on the left hand side. And that's often one of the reasons players' brains don't use both images, because if this eye is moving really well, this eye's not moving as well, the brain can start to prioritize the information from this eye. And that was exactly what's happening with me. So now I do work to keep the left eye functioning well in terms of its movements, and then I do drills to help my brain use both of the images together. And then in terms of coordination, there's lots of different things that I work on, but at the moment I'm focusing more on the left side of my body and more on my left hip, because that's the biggest limitation compared to some of the other areas. And by working on those things on an ongoing basis, it then makes the on-court practice a formality, because the better your body's functioning, the higher level of tennis you can play. So my practice is relatively linear. Everything that I work on at the moment, I'm continually improving, because I haven't reached any physical limitations in terms of my eye to hand and eye to foot coordination. Now, if you would like to learn how to use this style of training, if you'd like to learn about using neuroathletic training to improve your tennis performance, I've created a masterclass that's going to teach you all about it. I'll place a link up there and I'll place a link down in the description. Click on either of those links and it'll take you to a page where you can register for this class. It's going to go into more detail about how you can train your visual system, how you can work on your coordination, and also how you can improve the mental side of tennis, because that's obviously related to the brain as well. If you've got any questions about what I've talked about in this video, leave them down below. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it beneficial, and I'll catch you next time.